Hello everyone, welcome to the SketchUp 1.7 training set, friends. In this training set, I will explain how to use SketchUp 1.7 in the simplest and most understandable way. Friends, in fact, when we enter the asset editor in SketchUp 1.7, there are many settings when we come to the settings section. But we will see that we don't need to make many of these settings and that we actually don't do them. Friends, in its very simple form, in its most basic yet effective form, I will show you SketchUp 1.7 here. What you see here is the V-Ray asset editor, which contains V-Ray's own settings, friends. When you click on the gear icon here, you can find the last settings you made in this tab. The most common mistake users make is not clicking the referred button here, because the files you import from external sources come with HDR or other settings loaded. Since you got this file from a different source, when you click Render, you usually encounter a black screen error on the screen. This error is usually caused by the absence of HDR files, or the absence of a properly configured file. So you need to reset this by clicking the Revert button here in the Reward section. Look, when I clicked, all my settings have been reset. In this way, my scene has been adjusted according to my SketchUp scene, friends. That's enough to do this. As long as you do this, you won't encounter any issues. Normally, we have 4 main menus in SketchUp V-Ray. One of them is V-Ray for SketchUp menu, Vray Lights menu, and others are Views and Toolbars. When you go to that section at the bottom, there are individual objects and individual helper tools menus. Friends, for now, we won't be using these, meaning we won't be using the individual tools and objects section. Generally, we have 2 menus. Here from the individual helper tools that help complex textures, fit perfectly on surfaces, which are more commonly used for outdoor elements. We will use them, and we will use the rest of the parts a lot. When it comes back, we can reopen and activate these again. Guys, it's really very simple and easy. Regarding lighting, we're going to use the delay rectangle light here, which is a square light source. Normally, the light source works like this, friends. I also want to show you the scene from the outside. This is a model of a hall that you see in my scene. This is a model that has normally been applied and created, friends. Now, normally, as for the logic of light, we have a light source. Our main light source is the sun. We can also see the sun by opening the shadow section here. Look when I turn on the sun. Now, look, it has become more pronounced in the scene. When the shadow is open, you can see that the sun is on. Look, the sun is coming in from here. If you look at the direction of the shadow, you'll understand. You can see that the sun is coming in from here based on the direction of the shadow. But there's an important detail here. When I go into the settings in my scene, and I get to the light settings here, even though it's sunlight, it doesn't illuminate my scene enough. Guys, logically speaking, look, I'm going with a very simple and basic logic. There is sun in my scene, but my scene isn't reaching sufficient brightness. What do I need to do? We are asking ourselves questions. What do we need to do? There is a very large light source in my scene, and the sun isn't enough to illuminate this part of my scene. What do I need to do with the helper tools here and with the rectangle lights that we will see in the next section? I need to light up the room. And while doing this, it's enough to place 1 rectangle light by each window. When I place this, it will provide me with the necessary lighting. But just having the necessary lighting with rectangle lights isn't enough. We need to capture the dynamic light inside by adding extra light sources to the additional helper lights inside. Neither more nor less. There's a balance to this. We understand this balance when we reach a sufficient level of practice. The first renders we made may have a bad render output. But when we increase our training level and skill level, the results will really be quite significant. In this section, we have seen the most important parts of the main details in the mold and foundation sections. In the next section, we will see how we should light the scene with the additional light channels.